Hello, hello. Happy Friday to everybody. Glad you're here. Welcome to the Impact Over Attention show. We are super happy today to be talking about an awesome subject. But first, my name is Jake Jordan, if you don't know me, and I'm the founder of Impact Over Attention. And every week, twice a week, we talk about how you can make more impact in your business this week. Because that's what we're all about, right? We want to make an impact and do something every day, each week, and not just sometime in the future. And so this week, talking about listening. And gosh, I don't know about y'all, but listening is something that I say I try and do well, and sometimes I do, but a lot of times I just am not very good at listening. And there's so many things we can learn from so many people about listening. But we want to talk about how can we take it seriously? How is it something that we can not just say we want to do, but actively engage people in listening, so that we can not just get a promotion or make friends or do different things like that. How can we listen so that we are making a big impact around us and our own friend circles and our own family, but in work, in business? How can listening help us be more, do more, and honestly affect the world in a bigger way? So thanks for everybody for coming out. Braden, I see you in there from Mansfield. Good to see you today, man. So sick that I got to miss Jeff, but thanks for the invite on that. Chandra, good to see you. I've seen you been popping up in the group, so thanks for being active over there. Ann Small is with us. Love seeing Ann in the comments all the time. She's over in Little Elm. So as everybody's coming in here, we want to invite you Mondays and Fridays at noon to join us, because every week we're going to talk about one topic that's hopefully going to make a big difference in your own organization and your own teams each week. And so, like I said, we're going to talk about listening. And today I have a guest who I have not connected with in a while, and she is someone that I value so much, so dearly, and someone that I love to hang out with. And so it's long overdue for us to chat again. And you may know her. She actually spent quite amount of time on LinkedIn for a couple years when video first came on. She was part of the 10 Tips, 10 Days, really active in that. And she's written a book, and she's doing all sorts of amazing things. And she's got some new stuff coming out too, I think. So don't want to spoil any of that or steal her thunder, of course. But what I do want to say is she's great, and we're happy that she's here. So if you would help me welcome in Karen Markle. Karen, it is so good to see you.
Oh my gosh, if you can't tell from the smile on my face how excited I am to be spending this time with you, and what an honor to be on your show with you too. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Karen. That's awesome. So that's really why I brought you on, because you do a great job complimenting people. That's it. We can stop now. We can go. I feel better. Great to see you, Karen. So I actually consider you someone that is a great listener. So tell me, what do you think a great listener is?
Wow, that is a loaded question, but I'll do my best to give you a straightforward answer. To me, a great listener is somebody that can demonstrate either through words or action that they heard what you said. And they leave you feeling better afterwards than before. So there's some value that's added into the listening and the actions. That's when you know somebody hears you, when they respond back to you in a way that makes you feel good. And it's not about necessarily complimenting you, but it makes you feel good because you're like, yeah, they actually heard my business idea and they said they liked it, or they understood what I was trying to convey. And they want to think about it, and maybe they have some suggestions on how we can incorporate it and make it a part of our process. That's when you've been heard. And that's a very treasured ability that I think sometimes is overlooked, especially in business.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So you tell us a little bit about what you do and why listening matters to that.
Well, I am a confidence coach. It's been a long road for me to get to where I am today. But one of the things that I feel like God has blessed me with is the ability to not only listen, but truly hear what people have to say. And I've kind of been on this journey my whole life. I spent a number of years, better part of my adult professional career was spent working in the senior healthcare industry. And if you know anything about working with seniors, with elders, you need to be patient, but you also need to be willing to sit and listen to what they have to share with you. And it really doesn't matter how many times they tell you the same story. They want to know that they are valued every time they're speaking to you. And the way that you show that you value them is by listening. And yes, sometimes they will tell you the same story over and over again that you could repeat verbatim. But if you can repeat it verbatim, that definitely means you've been listening. And that really was driven home to me over those 20 plus years that I worked in that industry. I've also had the opportunity to work with people because specifically who I work with are women and men that have come out of toxic relationships. And I came out of a toxic relationship, so I know the value behind finding someone who's willing to listen without passing judgment, and they're able to affirm you. They're able to just make you feel good in your own skin, regardless of the decisions that you made along the way. So that's why I feel it's important that you don't have to necessarily compliment someone, but make them feel better after the exchange and not worse.
So how do you do that in a way that doesn't seem patronizing or like you're trying to gain an advantage, or like, because when I learned reflective listening, for example, I'm a little too literal sometimes. So I literally said back what they said to me, and it was like, what are you doing? So how do you go about doing that?
You know, it's a challenge at times. I sometimes have to really stop myself when I'm listening to a person and make sure that I'm focused squarely on what they're saying versus me trying to put myself in their position, because sometimes it's helpful to put yourself in the other person's shoes so that while you're listening to what they're telling you, you can maybe better relate to what they're saying and maybe even understand their perspective from where they're coming from. But sometimes and I'm speaking for myself,
Hmm.
sometimes when I do that, I get so caught up in the reflection on myself that I stop listening to what the other person is saying, and I'm not able to maybe even understand fully what they were sharing with me. Because sometimes people share things with you, especially in business where they're trying to bounce an idea. They're not necessarily looking for you to give your spin on it. They just want to know, is this a good idea or not? That's really all they're looking for. And sometimes that's been a challenge for me in the past. I'm not going to lie. I used to be accused of making things too personal, and I didn't understand that when I was younger. But as I got older, I began to recognize it wasn't so much that I was making it personal as much as I was just picking up on the different vibes that were around me, and it made it feel very personal. And understanding how to step back and then really, just be intentional. I think that's the best part I could say. Be intentional about listening to what's being shared to you.
Yeah, that's a hard thing because we spend a lot of time thinking about our responses,
Yes.
and especially if someone talks for longer. I'm guilty. I can go on and on at times. Um, I don't want to lose the thing that I heard them say at the beginning,
Mhm.
right, or in the middle. So I like that you said you don't always think about like being in their shoes, because then you're trying to think too much about like what you would do if you were in their shoes or something like that,
Yes.
versus just actually hearing what they're doing. So is there a way that you like try and pick up on what they mean versus just what they're saying?
Sure. I'm a details oriented person. Anyone that knows me has heard me say that many times before. I think, speak, sleep, eat, walk in detail. And while that sometimes, or I'll say a lot of times, is a great ability to have, sometimes I'll use Kenyatta. She's a behavioral specialist and she talks about kryptonite. That can be my kryptonite at times.
Mm,
But when it comes to listening, I feel like that is definitely one of my strengths, because I look at a person when they're talking to me and I read their body language and I take in everything around them. And that really helps me to kind of piece together their words versus kind of the subtleness nonverbal actions that they're making.
Uh-huh.
My business partner, Steve Sullivan, and I, we hosted positivity chats for about 6 months last year. And as the co-moderator, one of the things that I did was I would scan the room because these were all virtual calls, and I would read the room and I would watch people as somebody was speaking. I was watching to make sure everybody was doing their best to listen, and I was also noting body nonverbal communication. There would be people who would be nodding their head, or some people would be making, different weird movements with their face. And that told me, oh, I bet you they have something powerful to share in the conversation. And typically, when we gave them the opportunity to speak, sure enough, they had something very powerful to add. So again, my affinity for attention to details helps me when I'm listening to a person. If I can't see them via virtual or in person, when I'm on the phone and I'm talking to a person, I tend to kind of almost lean into the phone, if you will. I can hear in their voice sometimes when people are feeling a certain way, but they're not articulating it. You can tell by just the different tones when people talk. You can hear the different inflections. And these are things that just come naturally for me. So again, sometimes it can be a kryptonite because I can get a little too caught up in the details. But a lot of times it's been very helpful with me when I'm speaking with people to kind of gauge what's really going on.
Right. Yeah, and you are very empathetic, as Steve said. We put that across the screen here a second ago, and empathy allows you to kind of think behind the words, right, and really try and figure out what people are feeling. So, like, for example, Braden here, I love this tip, Braden. When you're listening to others, do you have tips to redirect people who seem very much all over the place when they're speaking? I take notes and go back to points, but sometimes people are bouncing in and out of several topics. And then, Braden, sometimes you're not sitting at a desk. I remember when in person was a thing, and we'd be at events and people are chatting, and you can't really take notes well. So, yeah, Karen, what do you think? Is there good ways to redirect people? Is that part of listening well?
I think it is part of listening well, especially if they start off on a topic that they seem very passionate about, but then they kind of, and I'm guilty. Sometimes I'm guilty of that. I'm not short on words, and I used to view it as a negative that I just did, and I learned after a while to just embrace it's who I am. But sometimes I get so passionate in my conversations that I'll start off on something and then maybe I might get distracted and go somewhere else. And I have found even when others are speaking to me, sometimes it's helpful to just kind of go back to that first point. And I do that as well when I'm talking to individuals. I have a client that I've worked with recently, and we were having a conversation and she kind of was bouncing all over the place. And I just keyed in on one thing that I noticed that she was most passionate about when she was speaking to me, and redirected the conversation back to that particular point. And it was amazing. We were able to get a little bit more clarity in our conversation when I honed in on that point. It's not always easy, especially depending on who you're conversating with, because sometimes out of respect, we don't want to step on other people's, their feelings. We want to be very nice. And with so much hostility in the atmosphere right now, it's such an emotionally charged atmosphere that we're all operating in. That's professionally and personally, that people are super sensitive to want to say anything to kind of cut you off while you're speaking. They don't want to seem like they're trying to attack you. And so it can be a challenge to redirect somebody, but if the conversation is deemed important enough and they mention something that you really resonate with, I encourage people respectfully to try to redirect the conversation back to that point. And you'd be surprised, the speaker will be receptive because they're like, oh, they were listening. Oh my gosh, let me tell you more about this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say was a lot of times when we're interrupting people, it's because we want to add our own 2 cents, not get clarification or expansion on something they said.
Yes.
And I found the same thing, that if I stop somebody, even if I'm not very respectful, like, wait. There's better ways to do it than that. But,
yes.
but if I say, that thing you just said there is really interesting, can you tell me more about that? What do you mean by this? There's rarely offense, if ever, if I can remember.
That's right. And I think that's so important for people to remember. Respect goes a long ways. And I realize respect is should not be um, a subjective term, but unfortunately it is. And I did a post on Facebook. I'm not sorry, not Facebook, LinkedIn this week, and I was talking about words in particular. And at the end of my video, I mentioned when you operate from a space of love. And honestly, this holds true even in the professional setting. And I just read an article the other day, and it was on. I want to say it was actually by Warren Buffett, and he was talking about, in the business world, we don't use the word love often enough.
Mm-hmm.
People misconstrue. They think when you hear love, you're talking about some type of romantic, personal. And that doesn't mean that you can't be talking about that. But when a person is authentically operating from a space of love, everything that they do is fostered from their heart, number one. And when it's steeped with love, that means you're going to show up in a way that you want others to respond back to you. So you're going to listen with more intention. You're going to engage in a way that leaves that person, like I said, feeling more valued after your interaction than before. And it all starts with love. And you have to love who you are enough to know that when you love yourself great and you treat yourself kind, you're able to treat others in that same way. And maybe everybody doesn't treat you back that way with the same level of respect, but I guarantee you there will be more people who will respond back to you in a respectful manner than not when you begin to establish yourself in the professional realm, in the personal realm, whatever space you operate in. When you present yourself consistently like that from a space of love, people will receive that because we're lacking in that right now, and there's a lot of negative things going on, both in the professional realm and personal realm. And to me, the way to get back to this respect is to operate from a place of love, even in business. That shows you care for your clients, your customers. It shows you care about what message you're sending to the consumers. And that's what we all want. We want positive messages to be sent out. And that's how you do it, or at least a part of it.
Man, that is so great. So the Greeks had 6 words for love, right?
Mm.
And there was, we also think of romantic or sexual or things like that. But,
Yes.
there's agape, there's
Yes.
philia, which is the friendship.
Mm-hmm.
They had ludus, which is more like of a playful, pragma, a long-standing. So that's
Mhm.
super cool, right? Because that we can be in a place where we are trying to be loving, and
Yes.
and everything will just go a little bit better, right? And so
Right.
that's my nugget today. I don't know about y'all, but like coming from a place of love for the person doesn't have to be romantic. It can just be, I really want them to do well. I really care about what
Yes.
they have going on, because it's going to help all of us when they're clear and when they're feeling good about their ideas or heard. And so, gosh, Karen, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind me making a comment about what Chandra says here I see some comments here on the side, and I love that Chandra said a good listener is observative. And that's so key when you are observing and taking everything in, because you also know how to adjust, right? You
Mm-hmm.
may start out the conversation, it may be upbeat, it may be light and airy, and all of a sudden, because you're observing the details, you observe the body language, you observe that something changes as the person is communicating with you, and it seems like something came across their mind and it reminded them maybe they're not really doing so well, but they tried to put off this false front that things were going great. And then something comes across their memory and their body changes. When you're observing that, that's kind of your indication to go, hey, maybe they're going through something that I don't know about. And, when we're in business, sometimes bosses will notice those things about their employees, but they won't call them out. And you don't have to call them out in public. You can just pull them aside and you could just say, hey, I was noticing, Jim, earlier when you were talking, I just kind of got this feeling that maybe, there might be something going on. Can I help you? Is there anything you want to talk about? And you don't push and pry, but you let that person know that you're available to listen without judgment. I got to put that out there without judgment. You're there to listen and to help them if you can. And if they say, oh, they might be surprised and go, wow, I didn't realize I said anything or did anything, but they may take you up on that opportunity to then confide in you about something that they're dealing with and get the help that they need. If you come across as somebody who's being overbearing and you show that you're just not interested in what they have to say, that's why a lot of people tend to keep stuff inside, and that's not healthy for them.
Yep, that's true. And I've heard numerous times this praise in public and question in private, because no one really likes to be called out in public.
That's right.
So that's good. And then Anne said something similar, right? Should encourage one another, lift each other up. If we want to leave some constructive criticism, do it in private, be kind about it. It's funny in that listening really does have a lot of the same characteristics of love.
Yes.
Right. It's being patient. It's being kind. It's not being self-serving. It's things like that where we're actually thinking about the other person first. And isn't that funny how that works?
Oh, it's so amazing. Again, everybody that knows me knows that I am a Christian and I talk about God a lot. And I love it. And I make no apologies for that. And I love every time I get a chance. And I don't claim to be perfect because I'm not, but I do love every time I get the chance to reflect God's image through the way that I show up. And how do I do that? I do that through listening. I do that through encouraging. I do that in multiple ways, but as you beautifully stated, it all goes back and it is a clear reflection of love and God's love. God's love trumps everything else in the world. It trumps any other type of emotion that we could ever want to ascribe to. His love is pure. His love is what keeps us standing even when we're going through the rocky roads. Our business is kind of teetering. It's on the cliff. It's on the edge. And there's the typical emotions that a person would have in that situation is a lot of stress and fear. A lot of negative emotions is what you would be dealing with. But when you're allowing yourself to be smothered, and I like that word for this example, smothered by God's love, it keeps you standing solidly on the ground because no matter what happens, if your business topples over, and nobody likes that, but if it topples over, God's love says you're still going to be okay. And that enables you to still be there for your employees. And it enables you to still be there for your colleagues, your counterparts. It enables you to also leave from your business and go home to your family and still show up for your family in a positive way without carrying the negativity, that stress and bitterness and anger and angst and all the negative things that sometimes life throws our way in business. We're able to still go home and be a centered person that is loving others because we're allowing God to love on us even through the difficult seasons in our life.
That's great. Karen, appreciate you sharing that. So good. Well, thank you so much for sharing just a little bit, I know, of what's on your heart around listening. And if people want to reach out to you and learn more about your confidence coaching or just some of the other stuff that you're doing, because you have some great posts and things that you do, what's your website? Where can they find you?
Yeah, right now we're working, my business partner and I, Steve Sullivan, we're working on our website, but you can still find us on LinkedIn. We're Confidence Rediscovered is our company. I'm doing a series right now that's free to be me, and I'm happy to send you a link. I can include a link for you to share with your audience that they can go to and they can get some more information on Free to Be Me, but it ties back into our Confidence Rediscovered if they want to learn more. If they're experiencing or they know anybody that's been involved, come out of a toxic relationship, and it can be professional as well. We're targeting mainly women, but men, don't be afraid to speak up. This is your opportunity. We would love to just have a conversation and see how we can help you regain your confidence, because at the end of the day, we were all created in the image of God, and He loves us, and He has created us for divine purpose. And your purpose will be realized when you rediscover your confidence.
That's right. That's right. Love it. Thank you so much, Karen. Appreciate you. And y'all reach out, connect with Karen on LinkedIn. She's great to follow. Once again, you've seen her website, Confidence Rediscovered, and she's got stuff for you. So reach out and connect. Karen, thanks a bunch for joining us today.
Thank you, Jake, so much. Honor.
All right, awesome. Well, once again, fantastic guests this week. If you are looking for a way to plug in and make some more impact, I've got my accountability group going. So you can see there's a link. If you want to join us for 30 days and pay what you want, pay me $1, pay me $10, pay me $100, doesn't matter. You put skin in the game, you come into the group for 30 days, and we help you accomplish something as a group, as a team. And we do listen to each other and help each other and support each other, and would love to have you. So just go there and check out the group. And until next week, have a great weekend. Once again, I want to leave you with the fact that when you start from a place of love and when you listen, you will affect everything around you, including business, including work. So remember to go with love, and we will see you next week at noon on Monday and Friday. Thanks. Y'all have a good weekend.